Danielle Colby's life took a dramatic and irreversible turn the day Mike Wolfe was convicted of Frank Fritz's murder. Known for her tattoos, vintage fashion, and no-nonsense persona, the American Pickers manager suddenly found herself at the center of a scandal that would shake the antique collecting community to its core. Initially, Colby appeared to be a hesitant witness for the prosecution, attempting to remain neutral throughout the investigation. However, newly uncovered evidence has now thrust her into the spotlight of an intensifying federal investigation. Federal authorities announced that they are broadening the scope of the case to include Colby after recovering encrypted text messages between her and Wolfe sent during the critical days surrounding Fritz's death. These messages, retrieved from a secure backup server, suggest she may have had prior knowledge of events leading up to the murder. Although Colby has not been formally charged, mounting pressure and public scrutiny are closing in as investigators delve deeper into what appears to be a far more sinister operation behind the American Pickers franchise. Colby gained widespread sympathy for her emotional courtroom testimony, during which she described how Wolfe had become fixated on being the sole face of the show. When I asked him about reconciling with Frank, he got angry. Really angry, she testified tearfully. Her account helped prosecutors paint Wolfe as controlling and increasingly paranoid about Fritz's possible return to television. However, forensic analysis of digital communications suggests that Colby may not have told the full truth on the stand. According to recently unsealed court documents, she exchanged over 200 messages with Wolfe in the week before Fritz was found dead. Several of those texts referenced Fritz's medication schedule and when he would be alone at home. One message, sent just hours before Fritz was discovered unresponsive, read chillingly, "He's alone now. No one's checking on him until tomorrow. Windows closing." Wolfe's reply, "It's handled. Delete this thread." These revelations have deeply unsettled fans, many of whom had seen Colby as an authentic and impartial figure caught in the middle of a feud between two old friends. Colby's attorney, Margaret Wilson, issued a statement denying any wrongdoing, asserting, "Ms. Colby has cooperated fully with investigators from day one. These messages are being misrepresented and taken entirely out of context." Still, suspicions escalated after surveillance footage from Fritz's neighborhood showed Wolfe's vehicle arriving at his home the night of his death. Enhanced footage revealed a passenger in the vehicle who remained outside while Wolfe entered. Though the image quality was poor, facial recognition software tentatively identified the passenger as Colby. She had previously denied being at the scene that night. Financial records have only deepened investigators' concerns. 2 days after Fritz's death, Colby received a $175,000 wire transfer from one of Wolfe's shell companies. The payment was labeled a business consultation fee, yet authorities found no evidence of any legitimate services rendered. Weeks later, Colby purchased property in Puerto Rico, where she has reportedly been spending increasing amounts of time. Prosecutors are exploring whether this could have been hush money. The professional relationship between Colby and Wolfe appears far more complicated than previously portrayed. Former production staff have recounted moments where the two held intense private conversations that abruptly ended when others entered the room. One assistant remembered Colby arguing with Wolfe about Fritz, reportedly saying, "Frank's becoming a liability, the show would be better off without him." Even more disturbing are personal journal entries from Fritz discovered in a private storage unit. In entries dated shortly before his death, he wrote of growing distrust toward both Wolfe and Colby. "D&M are always whispering when I'm around. I've seen them messing with my meds, saying they're just checking doses. Something's wrong. I don't trust them anymore." These statements contradict Colby's courtroom claims that Fritz confided in her and viewed her as a loyal friend. As a result, prosecutors are reevaluating her testimony for possible perjury. The History Channel, still reeling from Wolfe's conviction, released a statement suspending all ties with Colby pending the investigation's outcome. "We are committed to cooperating with authorities and uncovering the full truth," the network announced. Colby's rise to fame through American Pickers was unconventional. Initially hired to manage Wolfe's antique store, she soon became a fan favorite and gained more screen time following Fritz's departure. Now investigators are questioning whether her expanding role and increased compensation were linked to her possible involvement in a conspiracy against Fritz. Close friends have expressed disbelief over the unfolding allegations. "This isn't the Danielle I thought I knew," said Aaron Murphy, a former colleague at Antique Archaeology. Looking back, she became increasingly private about certain aspects of her life, like there was a whole side of her we weren't allowed to see. Danielle had cultivated a public image as a fiercely independent woman, balancing her role on American Pickers with burlesque dancing, clothing design, and other creative ventures. Her multifaceted identity earned her a devoted fan base who admired her individuality in a traditionally male-dominated field, but behind the scenes, investigators have uncovered alarming discrepancies. Financial audits revealed that Colby managed several offshore accounts funneling revenue from high-value items, potentially to evade taxes. Shell companies like Vintage Solutions LLC and Rusty Gold Enterprises funneled millions of dollars in profits. Forensic accountants estimate approximately $3.2 million passed through these accounts in the 5 years before Fritz's death. Of particular interest is a cluster of withdrawals totaling $450,000 made in the months leading up to his death, none tied to legitimate business expenses. Despite claiming limited knowledge of the show's finances during Wolfe's trial, documents bearing Colby's signature as an account manager directly contradict that testimony. Legal experts warn that Colby could face serious charges, including accessory to murder, obstruction of justice, and financial crimes. Former federal prosecutor James Harrington commented, "If the prosecution can show she was aware of Wolfe's intentions and didn't act, she could be facing significant prison time." The fallout has already taken a toll on Colby's business ventures. Orders for her online vintage shop have dropped sharply, and multiple scheduled appearances at burlesque shows have been canceled. Her once active social media accounts have gone silent since the new evidence emerged. Perhaps most chilling is Wolfe's reaction to the investigation turning toward Colby. During a prison interview, when informed of the expanded inquiry, Wolfe reportedly smirked and said, "It's about time. She knew everything. Ask her about the storage unit in Davenport. Ask her what we found in Frank's journal." The interview was immediately terminated by prison officials. Frank Fritz's sister, Lisa, who has remained largely private throughout the ordeal, issued a brief but powerful statement. "Our family has believed from the beginning that more than one person was responsible for Frank's death. We trust the truth will come out, no matter how painful." Former crew members described an increasingly tense atmosphere in the years before Fritz's death. Jason Miller, a former camera operator, said, "There was the version of American Pickers the public saw, and another behind the scenes where Danielle controlled access to Mike and managed sensitive information." Miller also recalled seeing Colby remove pages from Fritz's personal notebook, an act she brushed off as organizing notes to avoid bidding conflicts. But Fritz was visibly upset, and in hindsight, the incident seems more sinister. The show's authenticity is now in question as well. Documents from Wolfe's office reveal that many discoveries on the show were staged, with Colby coordinating with property owners weeks in advance and arranging financial compensation. Perhaps most troubling, messages between Colby and Wolfe discussed maintaining the narrative and keeping Frank in his place, indicating that their on-screen dynamics were carefully engineered for ratings. In one final twist, the simple relocation of Fritz's grave, intended to accommodate local land development, turned into an extraordinary media event when his sealed burial chamber was opened. Inside was not just his casket, but a curated museum of Fritz's most prized personal finds. Among them were rare artifacts, handwritten letters from Thomas Edison, a pristine 1934 Indian motorcycle, and toy cars made by children he mentored during hospital workshops. Most striking was a leather-bound journal titled The Real Finds, containing deeply personal stories Fritz had collected over the years. As experts cataloged the items, social media lit up with admiration for Fritz's legacy. The Smithsonian and other museums have expressed interest in exhibiting the collection nationwide. The Fritz family, after careful deliberation, agreed, believing Frank would have wanted his treasures to inspire others. In the end, Frank Fritz may be remembered not only for the antiques he collected, but for preserving the rich human stories. Behind them, an accidental historian whose final act exposed deeper truths, both about his life and those who surrounded him.